welcome, Bhaven, to this podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you because we've just had the Bank of England announce that they have kept the the base rates the same. And it's a really interesting time for property at the moment. And you are definitely the right person to talk to. So I'm really glad we managed to get this in the diary. Just before you came on, though, we were before we get into all of that, we were just talking about the cash flow game. That is it Robert Kiyosaki that's created it, or
That's
it's
right.
one of his affiliates or something?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that, anyway.
So it's based on the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, the best book in the world.
Absolutely. And we give it to a lot of our clients, in fact, and they find it fascinating and their mindset has changed on the back of reading that. But that aside, we were just talking about it, that we're looking to have sessions of having that game with clients and introducers and people that we work with as a social. So look out for that. We'll have a few of those in
And
2024.
what's the intention there from like what's so good about this game? Because we were talking about how like Monopoly is a similar sort of game, but why is this one better?
So
So
there's
it's
a
a
lot
game
more.
like Monopoly, isn't it? It's literally a game like Monopoly.
Yeah, so if you've not heard of it, the cash flow game is a board game where you are competing against up to five others in making yourself rich in various ways. So whereas Monopoly is property related, there's a few other dynamics involved in this. It's a little bit more creative, I feel, than Monopoly. It's like another stage up from there. So there's other investments in there as well. And it's more about your cash flow and what you can do to increase that. And of course, it's passive income that you're looking for. Just like Monopoly, it can go on for hours and hours. And just like Monopoly, there'll be
Yeah.
arguments left, right, and center. But a fascinating and superb
It's
game.
more like real life, isn't it?
It
Ultimately, I
is.
suppose the reason why you're inviting your clients to play this game is because you're saying if before you get into spending your real money in the real world, buying real investments and real assets and whatever, let's play this game so you get your mindset into understanding why we're even telling you to buy assets in the first place.
Yeah. And I mean, for those who are seasoned investors, they'll catch on to the game
Yeah.
very quickly. However, the newbies, those making their debuts in investments, it will be a real eye opener. I mean, it's fantastic. It'll be a few hours well worth spending around the table, and it's fun as well. So you'll
It's
see the
fun,
fun
yeah.
side of it as well.
Yeah. Do you know one thing I say to a lot of people that speak to me, sort of people that are going to become clients of ours, is, I'm talking about like business owners. A lot of business owners in the old days, they followed a system that worked very, very well for them. For some
Mhm.
reason, the business owners over the last 10 years or so, who have, done very well for themselves, have not necessarily cottoned on to, even people of our generation right now, have not cottoned on to what the point of the game is. So we think the point, because we see Apple and Facebook and whatever, we think the point of the game is to start this amazing company and grow it for 20 years, 30 years, and make £1 billion and then cash out at the end. And what I tell them is that SME, small, medium enterprises like our business, the point of the business is to generate profit at the end of the year. And then every year, take that profit and go and buy 2 or 3 houses with it. Every
Yeah.
year, just 2 or 3 houses. Because what that means is in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, whatever, if the business cannot be sold, if you can sell it, fantastic. You've got the money from the business. If it can't be sold, you've extracted profits and you've already banked those into assets. So if you buy 2, 3 properties a year for 5 years, by the end of 5 years, you've got 15 properties. So even if your business isn't worth anything at the end of 5 years, you've got 15 properties
You've
out
still
of it.
and this is what we teach a number of our clients. We have this conversation on a weekly basis, on a daily basis with a variety of clients. In fact, we've got clients who started off reading that book that we just
Yeah.
touched on and doing exactly that, where they've extracted some funds to buy another investment. A lot of the time it has been property, because property has been brilliant for the last few years. Property, as you know, is a long-term thing. So yeah, absolutely agree with what you've said. You've got to do the right thing at the right time. As you make money, look at other areas, and passive income is very important later in life as well.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump into what we're here to talk about, which is these base rates. So we all, hopefully most people have seen that just a couple of days ago, the Bank of England have held the base rates at 5.25%.
Yeah.
Tell us more about this. What's going on? Why have they held the base rate? What does that mean, etc.?
Okay. So that's, I think, the third month in a row that they've kept it the same. Now, is that a sign that we've peaked now at the base rate? The signs are that it has. The reason it's been happening, of course, is the cost of living is coming down. Inflation has dropped. Inflation, I think we're around the 4.5,
Yeah,
4.6
4.6,
mark.
yeah.
The Prime Minister did say at the beginning of the year that he expects to halve it. He has achieved that.
Yeah.
So the outlook is a little bit more positive. And as inflation comes down, we can expect that if this is maintained, that the rates next year, rather than staying the same, at some point next year, we can hopefully see a fall sooner rather than later.
And it's funny that, you say that the Prime Minister said that the rate was going to halve. But I remember back when it was like 11%, and he said, by the end of December, we'll get it down to under 5%. And everyone was like, wow. Like, even I was like, that's a big, big goal. And of course, here we are, December, and we've got it down to under 5%. So, it's while people may complain about their tactics and their politics, like, they do know what they're doing. They have got it down to where they said they were going to get it down to. And what that ultimately has meant is exactly like you said, the Bank of England has held its base rate. I read the report, and it said, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 6 of the 9 members, there's 9 people in this Monetary Policy Committee, 6 of them suggested that we should hold it, and 3 of them suggested that we should increase it. So we're not over the hurdle yet. Like, it could still increase,
Correct.
But because the majority, 6 of them, have decided to hold it, the reality is that we're probably, like you're saying, we've peaked. And now what's going to happen is those 3 that are currently saying we should increase it, they're going to say, okay, well, at some point, they're going to say we should hold it. And then they're going to say we should decrease it. So we will start to decrease, but not just yet.
Yeah, I think, it's a good sign just before Christmas that they've held it. And 3 months in a row, it's almost, the form shows that we're probably over the worst of it. It's a question of when in 2024 do they fall, and to what sort of levels, etc. So there's a lot of factors that will determine this. Inflation being one of them, election being another, how the market is going, etc. But I think, I can see it being held for another month or two, and then maybe between the second and third quarter, towards the end of the second, maybe beginning of the third, we can hopefully start seeing little drops.
Okay. I'll come on to the timing in a second. Let's just go back to, because some people are thinking to themselves, hold on a second, if the base rate's going down, this is bad for me. My money sitting in the bank, I'm getting 5%, but if the base rate's going down, I'll be getting 4% and 3%. So it's not good for everybody, is it?
No, well, savers are looking at around 5% at the moment. There are 5% deals out there for tying your money in for a short period. Don't forget that that's typically 5% gross.
Yeah.
But don't forget as well, and we touched on it already, if you're getting 5% and inflation is, for argument's sake, 4.5,
yeah,
what is your real growth? So yes, you are getting a return, but there is something in the background called inflation that is eating away at your money return there as well. So yes, it's not always excellent news. Higher rates, yes, you do get more in the bank and building society. Lower rates, you do get less, but inflation eats away at that as well.
And I suppose the point is that for people who have got their money in the bank, they are, as the rates go down, they're going to be losing because the rates are going down, the interest rates are going to go down. But people who invest, people who leverage their money, who borrow money, get a mortgage, for example, to go and invest in, say, things like property, they're going to be winning because, as we just said, because the base rate's coming down, we can then expect the mortgage rates to also come down.
Well, soon enough, people will realize that, yes, the headline rate might be 5, and in some places 5+. Typically, it's for a short period. But long term, they're not really making money. It's not a real money maker. They'll soon cotton on to that. Now, when times are hard, people feel cash is king. I get all of that. But if you really want to make money, it's not necessarily going to be in the bank.
Yeah.
It's a safety zone. I get that.
Yeah, and of course you should always have some money in the bank. Like, we shouldn't want to say invest all your money. Have some money in the bank, but we should actually, investment is the way to really go to build wealth. And Bhaven, people are saying, the interest rates are going down. We get that. The base interest rate from Bank of England is going down, but is not going down. It's being held at the moment. It's going to go down, but it's being held at the moment. But how can that mean that the mortgage interest rates are going down? Because right now, because although the Bank of England have held their base rates, we know that mortgage interest rates are going to very quickly, before the Bank of England drops their interest rate, are going to come down. How can the Bank of England interest rates be more than the mortgage interest rates?
Yeah, so these rates are determined by swap rates. You've probably come across it, but for the listeners out there, swap rates are determined by market forces and typically what the market thinks the future of rates hold. Now, we've already touched on the future is a downward trend. So the markets are acting on it as we speak now. So you will see, and we have seen, that the rate that you'll pay, the lenders are now putting forward on their products have been falling because they know in future the rates are going to be low. So they're hedging their bets, but the bet and the trend is now downwards. So you'll start seeing rates coming down definitely in 2024.
And I suppose that what you're saying there is that the Bank of England base rate is a base rate at this point in time. But yes, when the mortgage company gives you a rate, that's a rate for, let's say, a 5-year period. And that's why what they're saying is, well, yeah, we'll take a little bit of a hit today, but we know that actually it's going to come down. So we're going to win in the future. Over the 5 years, we're still going to make money. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. And they do that all the way across 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, across the board. They hedge their bets, as you've rightly put it, and knowing that there might be a small loss at the beginning up front, but over that period, the remaining 2, 3, 5 years, they will make.
Cool. And then if we talk about like what kind of rates they are right now, because, you know, there was a time, probably not so long ago, Bhaven, we spoke up, we probably did a podcast about this about a year and a half ago, probably, of rates being at 3% for limited companies. You know, so give us an idea, where are rates right now and where do we think they're going to come down to? Because, you know, the fact is that they're probably not going to come down to 3% in the next year. So where are they going to come down to, and when are they going to start trickling down?
Okay, so typically, and it does vary depending on a number of things, but a typical rate at the moment is starting with a 4. Okay. So whereas before when we spoke with the 6s and 7s, earlier
a year ago,
we're no longer there. We're in the 4s. So
wow,
you know, I think I saw a 4.94 recently, or 4.95. So they're in the 4s. And it does depend slightly whether you go with a 2-year or a 5-year. There's not too much different between the fixes on the 2 and 5, but a typical rate, without putting an exact figure on it, it now starts in the 4s, mid to high 4s.
And is that for a limited company or a personal name, just so we get an idea?
Yeah, so on both now. So
wow, okay, fine.
We've got a few, as you know, previously the company rates were slightly higher. They still are slightly higher. They tend to be closer to the 4.9s, but the personal rates are slightly lower than that. So you know, still over 4.5, but certainly slightly lower than the 4.9s.
Well, let's talk about limited company, because most of our clients will be buying a limited company. So for people that are buying a limited company, let's even say 4.9. Let's call it a 5, right? So we're currently at 5%. And when do we think that those are going to start coming down? We know that they're going to start coming down over the next 5 years, but at what point are they going to start coming down?
Yeah. So I've read a few articles, and of course I have to read these articles because it's it's on my table every day. There's a couple of schools of thoughts. However, the majority are saying that the middle of the year. So we're saying between April to August, April to September, we should see a drop or two from the current 5.25 base rate, but the typical 5% the lenders are charging for company rates to drop by somewhere between a quarter and a half. Okay. So we might get one drop, we might get a second drop, but I think we're looking at the middle 2 quarters of next year. Where the expectation is that the first quarter will still hold at the 5.25 base rate, so we don't see too much. But from the beginning of 2024, you'll see rates fall, but you'll see a slightly bigger fall, hopefully, in the actual rates that you pay as a company, as a company rate for a mortgage. Second half of the second quarter towards the third quarter of next year.
Okay, so let's just be clear. What you're saying is we're talking about the Bank of England base rates, and we're saying that they're going to fall at some point middle of next year. But we're saying actually that's irrelevant, really, because what we're looking at is when we're looking at buying property, we're looking at mortgage rates. And what you're saying is that mortgage rates, they used to be 7% a year ago. They then went down to 6%, 5%, and they're now kind of at the high 4%, let's say. And you think that those are going to come down probably immediately now, over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months? And what do you think that they will actually end up with? Let's say in 6 months' time, where do you think they'll come down to? Any idea? And I know you have, you haven't got a crystal ball, unfortunately,
I
but
haven't got a crystal ball, and this is by no means an absolute. But look, at the moment, we said they're touching the 5. They're in the high 4s.
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if we're in the 4.5s, the middle 4s,
Wow, fantastic.
in the middle of the year. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Brilliant. So,
It's a good
okay,
place.
fine. And what I'm trying to get at and what I'm trying to understand is, here's what I think is going to happen. If those rates are coming down, like you say, they're going to come down, we know that transaction levels for properties, for people buying buy-to-let properties, have been lower this year. And the reason they've been lower is because the rates have been so high. People are saying, oh, well, you know what? We'll just sit on the side. We'll wait and see what happens. Actually, we can get a better return in the bank. Or, let's just, it's still looking a bit shaky. Let's keep the money in the bank for now and we'll decide later. Now that those people who have been wanting to invest have sat around, as the rates start to come down, they're going to go, well, maybe we should get back involved in the market, because we know that the prices of properties are going to go up. The rents are definitely going up. The rates are definitely coming down. Let's get involved with the market. So I think that there's going to be, I don't know when, well, I have an idea of when, but I would like your opinion on it. I think there's going to be an influx of people wanting to buy-to-let properties at some point in this year. What's your thoughts around that?
Well, I can go one better. I mean, when I look at our business in the last quarter, so
Yeah.
the end of this year, definitely seen a slight increase.
Yeah, already.
Yes, the number of requests to go ahead,
Yeah.
decisions in principles, they have increased. What people are taking advantage of is a small reduction in property prices that have occurred at in various areas of the country. So we've seen a slight increase for sure, and we expect that to continue. And definitely with the rates changing and people are seeing signs that they have started to drop, they're going to come back into the market. I mean, don't forget, I mean, we've got a number of clients who are buying multiple properties every year. They were buying 3 or 4. Maybe last year, instead of 3 or 4, they bought 2 or 3, but they still bought.
Yeah.
And they were looking for those bargains. They were looking for, what advantage can I get here? And one of the biggest advantages were discounted. People that needed to sell, wanted to sell.
Yeah.
These were being snapped up and going slightly lower than an asking price. So people were taking advantage.
We did that. We did that ourselves, Bhaven. We sold my grandma's property because it was just the right thing to do. We wanted to move on at the right time and all that kind of stuff. We sold my grandma's property and we basically took a haircut of. It was in London, but we took a 5% haircut because we were like, you know what? Sorry, 5% haircut. We took a 5% discount on the purchase price because we said we want to move on with our lives. Yeah. We don't want to wait another year, so we'll just move on now because everyone's now moved out of this house. And so when I say to my clients and say to our clients that people are willing to give discounts, is because I'm in that place. I was happy to give a discount. Take the discount, 5%, 10%, and I'm talking about 5% on a 800 grand house. So it's a decent chunk of money that the person who bought it saved. And then the other advantage I think that people don't often talk about, and I know you know this because you are in the mortgage world, and I don't want to cause you extra work, Bhaven, but people could decide to buy a property right now. They could get into, with the rate, they could secure the rate at say 4.9%. And if the lender drops the rate over the next 3 months, because it takes 2 or 3 months to buy the property, if the lender drops the rate, am I right in saying you can just basically switch them onto the new rate?
And we've done dozens of those. That's absolutely right. We actually offer that service. So if the rate does come down in the 2-3 months that it does take to get the contract over the line, the completion over the line, if it does drop and we've got sufficient time before the completion date, a lot of the lenders will allow you to switch to the lower rate. Absolutely. And we've done that.
That's
and
crazy.
We'll continue to do that.
The reason why that's crazy is because a lot of people right now are saying, well, let's just wait a couple of months. If you're telling me that the rates are going to drop, let me wait a couple of months. And of course, with what you've just said, it means they don't have to wait a couple of months. They can actually they can have their cake and eat it too. They can pick up the best deals now whilst there are still discounts going, whilst people haven't got into the markets because the rates haven't dropped yet. They can agree a rate today. And then before they complete, they can recheck again. Oh, look, the rate has dropped by 3%, sorry, 0.3% or 0.4% or whatever it might be. Great. Let's take advantage of that new rate at that point before we actually complete.
Yeah. And just to add a little bit more, we've done that for clients. I mean, I think one comes to mind straight away. We've actually changed the product more than once
Oh,
while we were
really?
waiting for that. So there's been a couple of drops by that lender, and whatever rate we started off, I haven't got the figures in front of me,
Yeah.
but we did it once, they dropped again, and just before completion, we did it again. So it's not just the once as well. So you can time it in that way as well.
Yeah, I'm going to do another podcast at some point about, expanding on this particular topic. But the question that I next have for you is, this will be on people's minds right now. Should I fix my mortgage? If I'm going to buy a property with a mortgage, should I fix it for 2 years or 5 years? And I say 2 or 5 because those are the kind of common places that people are, 2 and 5. Of course, there is also 3, 10, lots of different options. But between 2 and 5, what's your thought process around that? With the rates the way they are, the rates are the way that they're going to go, and of course you know way more about the rates than we do, not just the headline rate, but all the fees and bits that come along with it. What's your thoughts around whether they should fix it for 2 years or 5 years?
So that would depend on the individual themselves, because you got different individual temperaments to this investment and how long they want to dive in for. You will get the ones that will go with the 5 year because they don't want the risk. They don't want any fluctuations. They're happy with the rate. They don't
Well,
want
it's
to
a
go
good
through
rate now. You said it's 4.9. It's not even like 5.5, 5.8 like
yeah,
it was before.
yeah. They'll be happy with the rate and they'll stay with it for 5 years because they know they can now budget for the next 5 years. It
Yeah.
is what it is. I don't need to do anything. But you've got the other one who are keen to do more. So they'll go with the lower or the shorter period of 2 years, knowing that in 2 years, if my property value's gone up or I've got a discount now, I'll have a little bit more equity. I can change it then. And if rates are as they're expected to be lower, I'll fix again in 2 years' time, maybe take some equity out and fix at that point to another 2 or a 5 year. So they are going to then make a call depending on what market conditions are in 2 years' time. So you've got both, and to be honest, we've got both types of
Yeah.
clients, and it's what's right for that particular individual. So we can talk to the
Yeah.
clients, and they can decide that is the
and
two
and that
or
and
five.
that's why they need a mortgage advisor, because I think these are very difficult decisions, difficult conversations, and nobody really understands what criteria they should use to decide whether it's 2 or 5. And I think, like you said, you talk to the client, you understand what their requirements are, you understand what their needs are, you understand them as individuals, and then help them and advise them to make that decision about whether to go for 2 or 5 years.
Absolutely, because what might be right for you may not be right for someone else because of whatever else is going on in the background,
Of
their
course.
investment temperaments, etc. So certain people need a little bit more one-to-one to decide whether they are going to go with a 2 or a 5 or a disc. I mean, whatever the type of product that they're
Yeah.
going to go for, it does depend wholly on the individual. So no two cases are the same.
And an example of that would be, let's say, for example, I don't know, let's say in 3 years' time, I'm looking to get married and I'm using my money right now, or maybe at that point, I'm looking to buy a bigger house or something. So I might want a bit of equity out of my house. So you say, well, good, go for a 2 year rate. Whereas somebody who says, oh, do you know what, actually, I'm really busy with my business right now. I don't have time at all to deal with anything. So I'd rather just fix it for 5 years so I don't need to then touch it, isn't it? It's a set and forget sort of system.
Exactly. Yeah. Horses for courses. Circumstances in the background dictate which way you're going to go.
Yeah, perfect. Bhaven, so this is the question that the main question that everyone's going to be asking me, right? Is it a good time to buy property? We're saying that there's lots of changes in the market right now, and when I'm talking about is it a good time, I'm not saying is it a good time at some point in the next 6 months. I'm saying is it a good time right now? We're December 2023, we'll be January 2023 soon. Is it a good time right now in the next 1 or 2 months, in the next 6 months, 6 weeks to buy property? Tell me. Tell us the answer, guru.
No, far from it. But here's what my take is on this. So property is not seen as a one-time thing. It's seen as a long-term thing. So it's not like you're buying today and going to sell immediately tomorrow or in the short term. It's a long-term thing. Now, even if you go back now, and we're always looking forward, but if you go back, interest rates, which is a core feature people look at, can I afford this mortgage? Can I afford this property, etc. You go back, 20, 25 years, turn of the century, rates were so much higher, and they were higher at various points. We've been spoilt with low rates in the last 11, 12 years. It's only the last year that we've seen it rise. So people were still buying properties 20, 25 years ago, and they're still holding on to them. They've seen it all the way through. It all goes in cycles. And as long as the individual, the client, the companies realize that this is a long-term thing, you should be okay with property. So, you know, there's a good time to buy and there's a better time to buy. I've never known a really bad time to buy a property, because you're looking at it as a long-term thing. So you'll see the waves, you'll see it going up and down, etc.
Yeah.
Rates go up, your rental, all these changes will occur. Right now, we're at a time where rates are slightly higher than what we've been spoilt by, shall we say.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's been 12 months now, more than 12 months. People have now acclimatized to the current regime of where interest rates are. Nobody is expecting rates to go back to those levels for the foreseeable, and the expectation is that they're going to stay at the 3 and 4. So if they do stay that, property prices will still rise because the demand will remain. Rentals are going to go up as well, etc. But all the factors, when you put it all into the melting pot, inflation rates, all the things that we've touched on over a longer period, yes, I think you should buy property.
And I think the really important thing that you said there is that it is a long-term investment. I think people lose sight of that because they're looking at the short-term fluctuations of the interest rate, of the inflation rate, of this, that, and the other. But they don't realize that actually what they're looking to do is put their money into an asset that's going to increase in value, not over the next year, but over the next 10 years, over the next 20 years. And the compounding on that is actually achieved over time, not over the next year. And what specifically right now, this is my favorite line that I keep saying to people. I keep saying we're now in December and it's all about Mariah Carey and mince pies. You know, people are filling themselves up with brandy and whatnot. As well as that, you know, part of the reason we're doing that is because outside, when we look outside, it's cold and it's wet and it's dark. And who can be bothered to go and do viewings on properties, you know, to buy a property and all that kind of stuff? No one can be bothered except for our team, because our team are paid to be out there doing it. So if you're paid to be out there, you're going to be doing it as many viewings as you can. And as a result, we're being able to find the, as you called it, you know, the discounted properties, the needle in a haystack. And right now, especially, if you think about in December, not many people list their property in December because it's, you know, coming down to the end of the market and all that kind of stuff. And they know they're going to be hitting Christmas soon. So people either do it in October, or generally speaking, they then start doing it in January again. So the properties that are on the market right now in December are the properties that people in October put them on and they have not managed to sell them yet, which means we're now 2 months down the line and they could be ripe for negotiating a discount. Not everyone is going to accept the discount, but 1 out of 10 might. And that's what we're trying to pick up. Yeah. The difference is you come to January, which is, some people are saying to me, oh, Shiv, you know, it's Christmas, you know, we're getting a bit busy, just want to finish everything for the holidays. We'll look at this in January again. And I said to them, you come to January and all the new people put their properties on the market in January, you know, 3rd week of January, 4th week, 2nd week of January, they're putting their properties on the market, and you offer them a discounted price. No one's going to accept a discounted price on the 2nd week, the 3rd week. It will be at least another month before they accept a discounted price. So really, I'm saying to people, it's a brilliant time to buy right now because people are willing to negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I touched on it just now as well, coincidentally, that we've seen a pickup towards the end of this year, this last quarter. I think a lot of those are discounted properties because people do still need to move, and those who are hungry for more properties are going in and picking up these properties at a lower price. So absolutely, yeah, kudos to them. But it will continue, I think, you know, in the early part of 2024 as well. So the outlook is, certainly from my point and what I'm seeing and what I'm reading, is positive.
And it's, you know, we won't know this into the future, but at the moment, I think that we have this once in a decade opportunity to, you know, pick up these properties and to build wealth. And the reason I say once in a decade is because the last time this opportunity was available to us was, well, the first time that we know about it was 2008, but everything was crashing then and we were too scared to do anything. The next time we knew about it was 2019 with the pandemic, 2020 with the pandemic. But again, then it was like a very short-lived thing. And the people that got in and got those discounted properties at that particular moment in time have saved £10,000, £15,000 on the property. This, again, right now, it's a very short-lived thing. If you have bought in the last 3 months or 6 months or whatever, you've been able to negotiate those prices. But this window of opportunity that we have, I think, with all the stuff that we've said today, is going to start closing. And we don't know exactly when, but we know it's starting already to close, isn't it?
Yeah, and people should take advantage of that. Those who are savvy and in the know, look out for these. I mean, you do it very well as you've touched on. But we see clients coming along as well. I managed to get a deal, etc. Let's go in. So yes, there is a window at the moment, and people should take advantage of it.
Fantastic. Bhaven, one last question, because you are the guru for mortgages here. So what is your top piece of advice for our audience here? Concerning property, concerning financing, mortgages, life, whatever you want to give them. Give them your nugget.
What's my nugget? You've caught me on. I think when you talk about property, because this is what we're mainly talking about, I think stay up to date on property trends, but always think long term. I think long term, and you won't go wrong. So if it's a nugget or a nugget and a half, it's to stay on trend with property and think long term.
And you know what, that is such an important thing now that I reflect on my own journey as well. You know, at the time that I was buying property, like my initial set of properties back in 2014, 15, 16 time, I didn't know what I was doing. I just like, really scared, you know, is the property going to rent? Is the bill's going to be more than I expected? And every penny, I was looking at every penny. And now I look at it sort of 10 years later almost, and 7, 8 years later, and I think to myself, what was I worried about?
Yeah.
I remember, Bhaven, the number of properties that I've lost because I didn't want to pay £250 more because somebody else bid £250 more. I said, no, I'm not having it.
When you think about it now, it's a drop in the ocean, and you think I should have just committed.
I should have done it. Most of my
I think,
properties over the last 8 years have now doubled in price, and I sit there and go, what the hell was I thinking?
yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, and there's many like you out there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of committing to it, and you should be fine. Long term, you should be fine.
I always think to myself, there's a meme that I saw on Instagram once, and it said there was, you know, with what was it called? Back to the Future. So it had Marty McFly and Doc said, Marty, we need to go back to the, you know, to the past. And he said, why? And he says, to buy more properties, because there is nobody that I know, Bhaven, nobody at all in the entire world who doesn't wish that they had bought more properties 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And do you know what, you touched on it? I actually spoke to a client only 2 weeks ago, beginning of the month, who said that exact same thing to me. I should have. You know, I mean, fortunately they're doing it now, but yes. Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, perfect. I will leave it there with you, Bhaven. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to our audience and helping us understand what all this base rate stuff means. And I think the highlight, for me at least, was, you know, whilst all the base rate's doing what it's doing, actually what we should be focusing on, what really affects us, is the mortgage rate, not the base rate. And the mortgage rate, we're saying, is going to be dropping soon. So there's this window of opportunity that we have to purchase properties at a discounted price. And we can effectively hedge our own bets, because we can secure the mortgage right now, and then in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, if it's gone down, we can still get the better rate.
Absolutely.
And we should be able to, or we should be willing to get in now, whilst, as I put it, Mariah Carey and mince pies is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and thank you for having me on once again. Look forward to another, hopefully in 2024.
Fantastic. Perfect. Thanks so much, Bhaven. Really appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Bye for now.
Cheers.